kill the chat right now. Everyone can hear us. And I am going to make you the presenter, Corey. So you guys understand, I met Corey a ways back. He was a wholesaler in Phoenix. Pretty big wholesaler. And we never really were competitor on deals because typically there's a ton of wholesalers in Phoenix and you never really run into people. Like we never ran into each other anytime Corey on a deal, but you've done a ton of properties. You've done a bunch of wholesale transactions in this market and in other markets. I've done a bunch of wholesale transactions. But something happened and you basically flipped the switch and moved into the multifamily sector, and that when did that switch flip? Would you say for yourself, Corey?
Man, that first switch happened in 2011.
Wow.
I was actually doing more fix and flips back in that period of time. And so 2009, 2010, I was in what's called Santan Valley.
Yeah.
A little southeast part of the city.
And
what happened was, man, I was getting harder and harder for me to find deals. And man, I was raising millions of dollars in capital. And they were like, Corey, put me to work. And I didn't have anything for them to go into. And so I was like, man, one day I was driving past an apartment complex and I said, you know, I wish I could own an apartment. Well, that day I said something different than I normally say. I said, how can I own an apartment complex? And I was almost out of necessity because I needed to place my capital. And I was just trying to find a different way to do it. And I'm a lazy investor, so this fits right into my play. It's what's the easiest way, the fastest way to cash.
Right.
And I learned apartments, man. And dude, I bought my first one in 2011.
Wow. So let me understand, why were you raising capital? Was it for fix and flip properties? Was it for...
Yeah, well, I started off as a wholesaler.
Yeah.
And then I thought I was going to transition into doing fix and flip. Horrible mistake, by the way.
Yeah.
Horrible. Oh, my God. I mean, honestly, if my story is, I want to say like it was, dude, I was a horrible father for a moment in time where all I was doing was running my properties. I was the professional parts runner from Lowe's.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know, I was a mess. And I thought I was making money, but was I? Because all I did was cut checks. I buy properties, cutting checks. I'm paying for rehab, cutting checks.
Yep.
And you know, sometimes like, hey, let me look at my bank account. How much money do I got? Oh, great. Oh, crap. But tomorrow I got to pay this, and this.
This, and this, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was, you know, it just was not fun. It wasn't what I really signed up for. I wanted sunsets and palm trees.
Right.
I wasn't getting it.
Right. So fast forward, and obviously you're going to bridge the gap on this webinar, which will be great for people. There's a lot of people on the line that are fix and flippers. They're wholesalers. They might have a handful of rentals, but they've never really ventured into the raising capital or the space, or kind of understand that. So you know, today you own upwards to 700, 800 plus beds, what they say, the rentable units, and doing over $470,000 a year in cash flow. So that's passive cash flow. So define passive cash flow, right? And then, you know, we're actually going to do a case study on a deal that was a deal of $4.7 million payday. That you got on a property that's insane. I mean, that's huge. That is something that everybody on the line should be just like at the edge of their seat, going, "What did you do?" and how they can potentially duplicate it. So define this $470,000 a year. So the effort that's related to basically have that money come in. Explain it for that. So $470,000 a year, what's that? That equates to how much a month?
Well, a lot.
470,000 divided by 12. That's about $40,000 a month. And in our wholesale world, right? We've got to do at least 100, 150, even if you're at a 30 or 40% margin, $100,000 in revenue. You're doing 10 houses at, you know, I mean, and you're marketing and finding and selling houses, going on appointments, doing stuff like that. So, are you, you know, what are we talking here?
So the first thing, Sean, people are going to look at me and say, dude, that guy's doing that. And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Hey, I barely made it out of high school, Sean. You're asking me to do the math. Dude, that's not my thing. I hire people to do math for me, right? But the thing is, like, here's the deal. 470 in cash flow. What does that mean? I don't do jack crap, man. Well, let me rephrase that. I do work, okay? But I hire great people to do the majority of it.
The heavy lifting, yeah.
To make $470,000 cash flow, I hire a great management company. I profit share with them.
Yep.
They have a vested interest in the outcomes. And so really, when I have a new deal, I get kind of involved. I do a lot of initial work. But once it's kind of sailing on the water, man, unless there's a storm coming, homie Peterson just looks at his reports each and every month. And I say, well, that's great. How much money do we make? And I look to the page, the money page. I'm like, ooh, okay, that's good. And then I shut it down and I say, great. I send out a little report to my investors saying, hey, here's what we did on our financials. We had a great month again. Mm-hmm. Like, guess what? We had another great month. Everybody paid their rents. We collected a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a great paycheck for you. And, you know, every quarter.
Right.
Next quarter's paycheck's coming. And that's what I do. So if that's work, man, stick a fork in me, dude, because I love it.
The interesting thing is I've met your management company. We met him down on the property, property we're acquiring, and I talked to David personally, and I talked to Mike and talked to those guys. So, you know, it's interesting that to be able to partner with a team of people that are that vested into the deal, that are way smarter than any of us when it comes to, you know, to running an operation like just a fine-tooth comb and squeezing every dollar out of the property is just amazing. And they deal with all the financials, all paying all the investors, dealing with all the headaches, where literally you can get a report with all the bank statements and know where every dime literally goes, you know, every single month. Is incredible.
I'm not just a pretty face, Sean, or a great dancer.
Yeah.
Okay? What I do is I make money moves, okay? My job is to raise capital, and it's a wonderful, wonderful job.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, well, let's get into it here. I'm going to turn over. Let me see how to do this. I'm going to...
This may be scary.
I'm going to turn over. I'm going to make you a presenter. Make Corey Peterson presenter. All right, so I have officially given you the baton. So you control the show screen and all that type of stuff. So
bingo. Can you see that?
I can see that. Yeah, it looks phenomenal.
And we're not looking at the. Yeah, what are we looking at? Are we looking at my screen?
Yep, that's your screen. So if you click on your PowerPoint there.
Wait. Gosh, darn it.
That's it right there.
Are you seeing it?
Yeah, I see the PowerPoint. It's perfect.
Oh, right on. Are you seeing just the PowerPoint, or are you seeing the whole thing?
I see all the slides. So if you press play, it should.
Hey.
Shh.
Now we're talking, baby.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just start this thing. Can I start it? Can I roll?
Let's do, man. We're on right now. Let's do it.
All right, dude. All right. So a couple little things. I gotta minimize this little thing that's in my way. And I did it, and I hit something wrong. Hold on.
I'm gonna let you take it.
You're like, Corey, I'm never gonna let you have control again.
You're the man. It's perfect.
Right. So here's the thing. Here's my objective, right? I'm gonna take all your listeners through the apartment life, the apartment world, why I love it, why we're going to do a deal together, why I think it makes a lot of sense, and why it's actually a good segue from, I mean, dude, I used to be a wholesaler as well, and you can do both. You really can do both, and make lots of money. And the thought is, you take money from what you're doing in wholesaling, and you can live off of that, and then you start building your legacy. That legacy wealth, that money that pays you time and time again for work done once, right?
Right.
And so it's a lot of fun. But basically, I'm gonna provide you some insight on what I call market cycles, why we pay attention to them. I want to educate you on why apartments, in my opinion, it's a good place for a lot of people's hard-earned money. And when I'm talking about the hard-earned money, I'm talking about the retirement money, and particularly because when people save all their life, what they really need that money to do is turn into a paycheck, and we help people with that in a real way. And then honestly, at the end, I'm just going to show you how you can unlock money that you never knew you had, and that you can invest in real estate. So that's kind of the process. And really, just to say, hey, we're not selling anything. I'm not going to sell anything. Sean, I believe you're not selling anything.
Nope.
I just want to educate you. So if you guys will give me that freedom and that ability, I will make this thing. I'll show you what it is. I'm going to unlock the mysteries, because it's not that mystery. It's a lot of fun. But so who is the Kahuna? Well, 17 years ago, I went to Hawaii, and I actually went there with my girlfriend, and she's now my wife for 15 years. And it was my mom's now ex-husband, but his name's Bruce, and I like to call him Bruce Wayne. Okay, but he's not Batman. But the guy was loaded, and he had a house right in Hawaii, in Kauai, the Garden Island, right on the beach. And I remember going to Hawaii for the first time. I went over over the berm, put my toes in the water, and just it was on a cove, walked the cove. There's a freshwater stream from the mountains, from the Jurassic Park mountains, going into the ocean. The sun's coming up, the spray from the waves is creating a magical paradise, just mystical, man. And I remember looking back over at Bruce's house and said, man, what does this guy do? He's got time, he's got money, he's got fine art, fine cars, and his phone is not ringing. And I got enough courage to ask him what he did, and guess what he said? He owned apartments. And so that's how the Kahuna was formed, because I left the island thinking Bruce was the big Kahuna. So I started my company in 2005. I started off as a wholesaler, transitioned into fix and flip, got into apartments in 2011, still had a wholesale. Up to last month, I just gave my wholesaling business to my family. So I make enough money doing everything else that honestly it was a great gift just to give it to my brother and his wife and say, in San Antonio, and say, you guys just have it. How cool is that? Not even worried about any other money.
Cool.
It's an awesome feeling, right? So I'm an author. I wrote Why the Rich Get Richer. I host a podcast of my own called the Multifamily Legacy Podcast, where we talk about all things apartments. And then I've spoken at Harvard, NASDAQ, and more importantly, I'm just a family man. This is why I got into the business, was for time and money and to do the things I want with my family. And really, so in the apartment world, what I really try to say that the simplicity of what we do is we invest in real estate in stable and emerging markets that provide our partners with cash flow. Okay, there is no other reason that we buy a property than to make money, and to make money by cash flow. We don't buy properties to go do the real pretty properties that we hope the property appreciates or will go up in value. We like finding what I call the working man's apartment complex. This is usually built in the 70s and 80s. And what we do is we really try to find things that have fixable problems. And that most properties that built in the 70s, 80s suffer from two things. what's called bad management. Obviously, that's and deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance is a good word of saying they don't fix up their stuff. Okay, and that happens more often than not. A lot of people buy it. A lot of doctors groups or lawyers groups or inexperienced operators will buy properties and they will mismanage them, and then they get into a cash constraint, and then they don't have money to fix up the property, and next thing you know, it's starting to go downwards. And so we look for those opportunities. And what I love about the multifamily space, unlike single families, is it's different. With single families, it's all about what's the R, what's the after repair value. For us, it's really about just the numbers. It's all based on real numbers on operations, not what we think the market will do. It's what is the property currently doing right now financially, and that's how we buy it. And so you don't fall in love with the deal, you just fall in love with the numbers. And then what we do is we use investors, private money, private capital to help fund our projects, right? So everybody wins. So basically here's our problem. So if there's a problem that we have is we take B and C properties and we provide quality living that's affordable, but honestly, we have been crushing it lately, finding lots. I just put a $10.65 million deal under contract yesterday, Sean.
Sweet.
Or 2 days ago in Waterloo, Iowa. Who knows even where Waterloo, Iowa is? I don't. At the moment, I don't. In about 2 weeks, when I go see the property, I'll know where it's at. But I don't have to. My management company identified it. It's a viable deal, and it has the same two problems, right? And it doesn't mean that they have to be like way below, bad occupancy or bad. They just could be overspending and they don't even know it, and that's what's happening in this property. But
so Corey, just to define, because there's a couple different plays out there, and especially as wholesalers, we always look for the distressed deal. So what's interesting when working with you don't look for a distressed deal like a property that has 40% occupancy and it's been burned out and you can get it at a discount or whatever. You look for the properties that that need slight operational tweaks where you can make that's where your big difference happens.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why, especially in this market right now, is it's just a lot less risky. So why would you want to buy a 40% crapped out apartment that you got to do so much work and stress out when? And honestly, Sean, you got to see this firsthand when we were at our University Crossings deal.
Yep.
Is that you were like, hey, I've got another deal to go look at. We looked at it, and we're like, hey, why isn't this one a deal and it was less per door than the deal that we were buying.
Right.
And so you're automatically thinking, dude, it's got to be a deal. But when you look at it and we got there, it's like, dude, this thing needs so much more work, and it's going to be a pain in the butt. And then we left thinking, that property saying, man, it's not a deal. And then I remember us driving in the car back to the property that we were going to buy, and it was like, oh, this feels so much better. It feels so much easier. And
well, I think I think the interesting thing was, for me, it really gave perspective because, is that I went to the property and when it came to the point where the management basically said you could do everything, get the place completely renovated, get it all absolutely perfect, but the only way to increase occupancy, and the occupancy I think was like less than around 80%, the only way you can increase it is reduce rents, right? So that was a huge flag. That was like, okay, now we're gonna pack up and go. Whereas you're looking at, University Crossing right across from, the university there, there's so many little tweaks that you can raise income amazingly. So, and so it's really not just looking at the deal, it's looking under the hood of the deal and looking at those numbers, which makes a huge impact, and actually visiting the property and the location makes a huge difference in whether it's a deal or not.
Like open our eyes. You're like, oh wow, okay, I see the difference now. I remember watching your eyes, and you're like, oh, it was like click, boom. Yeah. Now I understand it, right? And that's really, as trained guys that were like, we're trained in the wholesale business that there's a way to make a property work, right?
Yeah.
You can make a property work. Sometimes with multifamily, it's just like, listen, there's no play here that makes sense. Let's just walk away. And you're like, well, but hold on, but we can make it a deal if we can buy it at the right price. You're like, listen, it's not even worth the hassle when we can just go out and find a better deal.
Yeah. Or more importantly, yeah, is that, you know, in your philosophy, your number one absolute core philosophy that underlines your entire operation is protect the capital, right? So why put capital into a high-risk proposition for the potential to make money when you can protect capital, underwrite it for all the downside, be as conservative as possible, and still make a profit, and now you have all the upside?
Yeah, you hit the main factor right there, buddy, is when you put it through the goggles of, hey, I'm going to raise $3 million for this project, and I want to be able to sleep at night. If you take on those big risky projects, you're like, dude, I may lose some sleep. And when you have 3 million reasons that will keep you up at night, it will keep you up at night. And so it's easy to say, you know what, there's better and easier deals out there.
Right.
And there truly is, right? So here's what I feel like, you know, you asked the question earlier, you know, what are people getting in their IRAs and in the stock market? Now, a little background about myself. I come from that world. I was a financial advisor. I had my Series 7s and Series 66 license. So I understand the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all those financial instruments. I get it, right? And so I always say, you know, how's the stock market treating you? And, you know, will it always keep going up? I mean, we've been in a nice run lately, but none of us will forget what happened in 2008, 2009. And, you know, I watched grown people, 65 plus, come into my office sobbing uncontrollably because all the planning they've done all their entire lives was now ruined in 1 year. And, dude, it was a sad reality.
Yeah.
Sad reality. And so I always say, you know, how's the stock market treating you? We find most investors want more control of what they invest in. I find that when I ask that, like, hey, do you really know what you're in? What you go to see the Edward Jones guys, and I'm gonna beat up Edward Jones because I used to work for him, the stockbroker. And you know, he says, hey, you should invest in this mutual fund. Here's the 15, 20-year prospectus of it. But once he takes your money, do you think he even knows where that money goes?
No.
And how many people touch it until it gets to the one person that says, I want to buy a million shares of blank, right? And it's watered down, and like no one knows who's in control. And I just say what investors want is they want more control. They just want to give their money to the 401k and hope their investment company invests it well. And most of the time, you're paying outrageous fees. So with Edward Jones, if you had $100,000 or less, you were going to pay a 5.75% A-share load.
Jeez.
Before you made any money, you had to recoup almost 6%. And I'm supposed to be giving advice. I'm a salesman. And so many advisors are salesmen, and they're not really acting as fiduciaries, even though they're supposed to, right?
Right.
But I'm just telling you how it works, right? And I said, when I think about retired people, what they really want, Sean, is they want mailbox money. They want to be able to say, listen, because the biggest fear of every retired person that I know of is, am I going to run out of what?
Money at the end of the year, and end of the lifetime, yeah.
Yeah. Will I outlive my money? Will I run out?
Yep.
And so what they're really trying to do is increase their income. And so, you know, it's like advice. Where do you get your advice from? This is the tale of three salesmen, or we could say three stooges.
Yeah.
Okay? So, you know, if you ask an insurance man and you say, hey, listen, I got $1 million, what should I do with it? The insurance man is going to say you need to buy more insurance. You know, the stockbroker is going to say you need more stocks. And I would like to think, and I think this is the truth for most really good financial planners that are managed money, they usually take a little bit better holistic approach, right? So out of the 3 types of people, I think they're the best. But my question is, what do you say? Like, what is your opinion? Because most people, like, listen, you can usually make a better decision on what you should do with your money than anybody else can. I truly believe this. And, you know, the magic words that all financial people say is diversify, right?
Right.
And the insurance man says, listen, you need to buy all this different types of insurance. The stockbroker says, don't buy just one stock, buy them all.
Right.
And then, you know, and so it's like, but the problem is all those things are just really, truly paper assets, right? You're just buying a piece of paper. But there's other ways, paper assets. There's oil, and there's this thing that we love called real estate, which is most of your audience, they understand this game, the real estate game. But the problem is, how do they invest with their money that's already in liquid funds? They've got to find someone they can invest with, because they can't use their own money to invest in their own deals, right? Most of the time.
Right.
So let's talk about rates of return. So this is a good. Some of you people were saying 2%, right? Now this slide's pretty old. October 31st, 2017, the bond market was getting 2%.
1 point, yeah.
If inflation's 3% and you're making 2, that's like the easiest way to go broke, like safely.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you know, it's real safe money. And, you know, the pros and cons of, like, what's out there that you can invest in the stock market. Let's talk about those financial advisors. So there's basically a handful of things that most of them will sell you. And one's the CD or a money market account, right? Those are safe, but they're a stupid rate of return, usually less than 1%, right?
Yep.
And it's a horrible way to lose money safely. Then you have bonds. You have corporate bonds. You have municipal bonds when cities need to raise money. A lot of times the city's municipal bonds are tax-free. You know, you have federal bonds, and sometimes you can get federal bonds to be tax-free and state tax-free. And then you have this thing called junk bonds, and those are usually the bonds that they may offer a high interest rate, but they're very volatile, and they're usually startup companies that could go broke, and most of them do. So bonds, there's bonds. So the best bond that when we were selling bonds, we were selling like Coca-Cola bonds or Bank of America, well, not Bank of America bonds anymore, but we'll call them Coca-Cola bonds. They're paying around 4.5%, Sean.
Jeez.
For a good corporate bond, but that's nothing, right?
Right.
And then you have the stock market, and dude, nobody's trusts the stock market anymore, right? It's up and down. The only people that make money are like the wolves of Wall Street, the ones that know how to manipulate the market, and they do. And we're just sitting here as bystanders, really not playing the big chess game that real big money and financial institutions play. Sean, I'm not gonna lie, you got me onto that movie called Billionaire, or Billions.
Billions, yep.
And every time I think of the stock market, that is the only thing that I think of, is that I don't have a chance because all the big Wall Street firms are making all the moves, and I'm just a spectator.
Yeah.
So
in Bobby Axelrod's world.
Exactly. You know, so here's the problem: is even if you put 10% of your income away every year, in order to get 100,000 to 120 when you retire, right? A financial advisor says you need to be able to live off of 3 to 4% of your investable assets per year, right? So they're saying is you need $3 to $5 million in investable assets, and for most people, that's just simply like too much money. I mean, there's a very few people in the world that have $5 million in assets, believe it or not. Now, the ones that do, a lot of them are in real estate, and so it's a great place to do it. But for a lot of people, I mean, think about this. Probably your audience, Sean.
Yep.
I'm going to say that most of them were either working a job, working their 9 to 5. I mean, I was listening to sometimes my 9 to 5, listening to your podcast when I first started. And man, that's the truth. That's that you're working, and then you're like, man, I quit that job, but I still have all this money set aside. What do I do with it? Do I even trust it? And will I ever get to more than blank? You know, just to reach $1 million is a big deal for a lot of people. And that's usually about, you know, and they know that that's not enough, especially in today's world. $1 million doesn't last very, very long at all.
Right.
So it's almost impossible to achieve. And now, here's the thing. What if now, so now I'm going to flip the script a little bit on everybody. And I know I'm talking a lot about money right now, but I've got to, because I'm going to set up what I do in the apartment game, right? Because a lot of what I do is set up by understanding the principles of what kind of return can I give my investors that allow me to do the big apartment deals, to buy these $20 million assets. And I call it, this is what I offer people. A lot of times it's more of a cash flow plan, right? I invest in appreciating cash flowing investments called apartments. And like a lot of times if investors were to work with me or a typical deal looks like you put in $100,000, you're going to get a 6 or 7% cash return. Most of the times we call that a preferred return. And I'm going to show you an example of one of the deals that I bought where that's what my investors did get. And the asset appreciates, but it appreciates because we force the rents up. Everybody understands, like living in an apartment, Sean, they pay rent. They pay rent each and every month. And every year when their lease comes due, they expect the rents to go up. And we never disappoint them, ever.
Right.
Right? Even if it's $15, a $15 nuisance raise. And a lot of times, if a lot of rents are like $600, $650, 3%'s $18. No one is moving out of their apartment complex for $18 more in rent. Yet, that's the way we make profit, because that $18 times 200 doors is a big, big deal, especially at a 7 cap or a 6 cap or something like that. But also, my investors get to double dip with me, because when we sell the asset, because we'll usually hold them for 5 years, Sean.
Yep.
Our typical deals, we buy them, and there's a reason for 5 years. The first year, we fix all the broken stuff on the property. The second year, we fix all the broken tenants. And then the next 3 years, we try to maximize our operations. And raising rents as high as we can and keeping our expenses extremely low. And so we are forcing that appreciation. So when we sell, we make a lot of money. And so our investors get another chunk of return, chunk of cash at the end. And they love that.
Yep.
And so and then I call it the triple dipper, because a lot of times if they're cash investors, they'll get the depreciation. So we get to depreciate these assets, and dude, that's where the real stuff comes in. Let's talk about
that.
So
let's explain that, because there's a lot of people on the line that fix and flip or they wholesale, and they're getting taxed at ordinary income rates at 39%, right? And they get this massive tax bill, and they're wondering, how do I offset my taxes and be able to also get the type of returns you're talking about? So talk about that cost segregation, forced depreciation type of thing.
So the great thing about these apartments is you can do what's called a cost segregation study. And all that means is, normally, just like with residential real estate, you can take a property minus the value of the land, and you can divide it by 27.5. And that is your depreciation schedule. But they also give you so it's either you can do it that way, or you can do what's called a cost segregation study. And that's just where you hire an engineer to come to the property, and he says, well, you don't have a building. What you have is 5,000 light bulbs. You have a bunch of sheetrock. You have a roof. You have appliances. And all those things have a shelf life of a lot of times of about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, way shorter than 27.5. I mean, carpet is less than 27.5. Dishwasher, all the appliances are less than 27.5. Roof is less than 27.5.
Yes. And so that allows you to accelerate all that depreciation. And so an example of what happened, we have a property that we did a cost segregation study on that we made probably $279,000 profit on, right? And we got to show on paper that we lost still an additional $100,000.
So that's a $379,000 swing in essentially write-off, right? So what does that mean for someone listening that's in wholesale or fix or flip right now? What if you generated, let's say you made last year in 2017, you made $400,000, but you happen to be able to be in a deal like this, and you wrote off $379,000. What's your taxable income? 30 grand. Now, what's your tax bill on 400,000, and then what's your tax bill on $30,000? It's gonna be a massive difference.
Dude, and like that's where the game's at. Like that's how you get, and I'm gonna say it, that's where you get that Donald Trump. The reason Donald Trump ain't showed his taxes because he ain't paying any.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's using the power of real estate in a depreciation. He's not paying taxes. He shows losses. And that's how you play this big game. And that is the real difference, the difference between being a trader, right, with a D, and being an investor. Investors get depreciation. We use that to our advantage, and we pay lower taxes because it's long-term capital gains, right? And so it's just a different game. And so, but you can play both. You absolutely should be playing both. But it's a great way to start segueing your profits from your wholesale business to getting into the opposite side where you're truly becoming a true investor. Because one day, all your listeners are not going to want to work anymore. Or they're going to work because they want to. And how you do that is you have assets that pay you time and time again for work done once.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Now, I know there's people on the line right now, and I can just think what they're thinking, and they're sophisticated investors, been doing this for a while. And their question is, when do you basically recapture that depreciation?
Well, typically we try to do a 1031 exchange. So when we go to sell a property, it all depends. So like with our investors, sometimes we keep them with us. A lot of times we do. Sometimes we don't. It all depends on the next deal and what is happening. But in the last deal I just did, I had all my investors come with me, and they got to do a 1031 exchange with me into the next deal. So we sold the deal. They got to come to our next deal. And so as long as they're in the ride with us and they're not selling the asset, they just carry it forward, man. So there'll be a day if we truly exit out the whole project that, yes, we'll have to go pay some taxes. But the thought there is a penny today better than a penny tomorrow?
Right.
And the truth is, a penny today, I can use my skill today to make more money on my money to take care of tomorrow. Now, the legacy way is to keep buying more and more deals all throughout and never get it. And then when you die, if you've tax planned this right, your kids get it and they get a step up in the basis. And so then they get it tax-free.
Yeah, so then the other question becomes, okay, well, then, let's say you've got $5 million, you've 1031 exchange, how do you get access to it? And that's where you can come through a refinance. You can refinance out the property. You can still have a 1031 and do a refinance. You still have your investors, right, or not. But is that refinance money, the equity you're pulling out of the property at, say, 75% loan to value, is that taxable?
No, it's because it's loan money.
It's loan proceeds. So think about it. So you got a property. You forced all the depreciation down. You forced the appreciation on the property. And now you do a refinance, you can pay off the investors, you still hold the units, and you get, say, $1 million payday of loan proceeds, right? Cash out. You're still at a low LTV at a 75% loan to value. Everyone's paid off, and you get $1 million. You still have the building, you still get cash flow, and you pull $1 million out tax free.
You know what it equates to, Sean? Remember that game called Monopoly?
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's essentially what we're really doing here. Is we are buying, you know, in the single or in the wholesale business, you're wholesaling your greenhouses so you can trade up to the Red Hotel, and we call that apartments. That's really all it is.
Right.
So, you know, I always say, you know, it's like you can have your cake and eat it too, right? Your funds grow faster while paying cash flow returns, right?
Yeah.
Because most people, especially when they get into retirement, now, I always say this too, there's another way too, for people that are still working, maybe they're wholesaling and they're working as well. When can you truly retire? You can retire when your income replaces any income you need to live off of.
Right.
Right? And the sooner you can do that, the better. With the apartments that we do, we usually pay a really good return, preferred return that allows our investors, like on that one deal that I did, it was a 6% preferred. Well, there's not anything out there on the stock market that I know of that pays a 6% return and pays quarterly. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And so, but then we also have that carrot of the sale down the road, and that helps it. So then now we're gonna transition more to the apartment side here with multifamilies. So how do I find these deals? Well, man, I'm gonna tell you, most of the deals are not on the coast, right? So you can take California and put a big X around it, and all the things up the coast up there. You can take all the things above North Carolina, and maybe you can tell state, maybe a little bit of Virginia, but go up north and you can X out all that stuff. Those are super, super competitive markets. What does that leave? It leaves a lot. It's called the Midwest and the South. And I typically, but you're looking for what I call third-tier markets, emerging markets. These are going to be markets that are like the San Antonios of the world. The San Antonio is not the biggest market, but it's a smaller market, right?
Not
Maybe
Phoenix.
El Paso. We almost bought a deal in El Paso.
Yeah.
I own in Slidell, Louisiana, which is just north of New Orleans. I own in Evansville, Indiana. Where's that at? I don't know. It's in the middle of Indiana, but there's a college there, and I make a lot of money on that property.
Yeah.
So we all know that there's market cycles, right? So let's just talk about them for just a quick minute. We don't need to spend too much time on this, but just understand that the market is cyclical. We know this. Back in 2006, 2007, you were in, I'm going to call it a seller's market too. That's when and we're really almost at the peak of that market. Because and every segment is around, honestly, about 5 to 6 years, it feels like. Now, it's not an exact science, but we're going to make this make sense here in a minute. So if you look at that first hashtag, it says BM1. That's a buyer's market 1. That's probably 2009, right? Early 2000, right after the market started crashing, as the market was starting to go down. That's a buyer's market 1. And that's 2009. 2010, buyer's market. Now that happened real quickly, right? It did, because it dropped sharply. Then you have a rise. So from 2000 and let's say call it to 10 to 2000 and well, right now I think we're in the top. We're starting to be in a seller's market 2. What does a seller's market 2 look like? That's when the days on market become shorter and shorter. It's getting harder and harder to find deals. People are starting, there's like the no money, no credit, no problem. Those types of loans are starting to find their way back into the market.
Yeah.
And it's heating up, right?
Yep.
And so think about that. The market's changing. Now, you can still buy in that type of market cycle, but you've got to be very conservative. And so here's what I know. When the market crashed in 2008, 2009, I had properties in Tulsa, Oklahoma that I had bought in 2006. Okay? I had 4 rental properties. I still own every rental property there. Well, why? Because I bought based on cash flow, right? I had enough rent, and the rent price was enough to cover my note and make profit. And I had a 30-year mortgage, right? And so because of that, I was able to weather out the market cycle because I bought my stuff based on cash flow. And so the only point I want to make on this slide is cash flow is the only reason we buy apartments. It's not for the big hit at the end when we sell it. A lot of times that happens, but you've got to be disciplined enough to buy it only based on cash flow. Because if the market does turn, it's the cash flow that sets you free, right?
Well, yeah, well, it's actually interesting point, you know, and I think one of the questions that I had and maybe a lot of people are having on the line is, and I asked David from your management company there, I happened to meet, and I got to say he's one of the smartest guys that I have ever come across. But, you know, currently the company has over 3,500 units under management. And my question to him was, if you take those 3,500 units and you put them in a 2008, 9, and 10 environment of market environment, what happens to those 3,500 units? And he sat back and he kind of sat in his chair and kind of, you know, put his hand on his cheek there. And, you know, he's sitting there going, thought, and he goes, well, interestingly, our rents would go up, right? Our rents would go up. Now, what the bottom line is, people that got in trouble in 2008 were over leveraged on properties that did not cash flow. They didn't have what's called a debt coverage rate, basically a debt coverage ratio. And because they didn't have a debt coverage, the problem is now they're paying on a property that has decreased in value and with no cash flow. So, you know, interestingly enough, what Dave was saying is, you know, yeah, the cap rates might have rose, but the property would still cash flow, and then it would cash flow more because rents would go up. So if you had to exit anywhere during the 2008, 9, 10, 11 era, then what happened was you get hurt. And my big problem was what I did is I sold all my single family houses, made millions of dollars, and put them in the land in 2005, 6, and 7. Well, land does not produce cash flow. Land is a non-cash flow asset. Well, you know, interestingly enough, if I would have put them in apartments, you know what I mean, I'd probably still have those assets right now instead of giving them back to the bank. You know what I mean? So, and losing millions of dollars. So, but it's funny because all the people I knew in Phoenix, which was a bloodbath here, the people that actually made it, you know, all the way through that had long-term debt on their properties and they had cash flow on their properties. So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, man. I mean, really, and it was, and the reason why, and people would say, "What do you mean? You're saying the rents are going to go up? Why would the rents go up in a down market?" Remember, we're buying B and C assets, these older assets. And let's just say the market takes a crapper, and you're a renter, and you're living in the Taj Mahal, right?
Yeah.
That $1,500 month rent project, right? And as soon as you can't afford it, and the market changes, you are going to skip your rent, or you're going to get out of that lease immediately. And where are you moving to? Because you're still a renter. You're moving to my place.
Apartments.
Right, to our place.
Clean, yes. Good operated apartment.
Yes. So here's the thing, man. I feel like this is, if there is a mission in the apartment world, it's really to say, I want to bring small and large investors together, right? So they can achieve the same buying power and benefits enjoyed by the big REITs, by the big boys, right? And so I've been able to do that through what's called private placements and to structure my deals right. But when you can do that, dude, you can play with the big boys. And the problem with the big boys is they're horrible buyers. They buy stuff because they have so much money that it doesn't really matter. Now, us, we're trained assassins. Sean, you teach your investors to be trained assassins on how to smoke out deals.
Yep.
And so you use that knowledge, man, it is a major, major game changer, because it's kind of the same system. Like, how do we smoke out and find opportunity to turn it into gold? And that's really the magic of it. So how we do it is we create a structure called a private placement memorandum. What is that? It's the official way that you raise capital and pool money together. Very simple, very easily done. We will normally have two share classes, A shares and B shares. A shares are for the investors, and they get ownership of a property, right? And the B shares are where me and Sean are, and we're operating an asset. We do this for a reason, is to protect us. Notice in this diagram that Kahuna Management LLC is the property manager. Well, there's a reason for it, is because it owns nothing. So, I mean, God forbid someone falls, slips, gets killed on the property, or what, you name some crazy thing that can happen in life. If that ever happened, the person that's going to get sued is Kahuna Management. Well, it owns no assets. There's no recourse on that. We protect our investors by putting them on the A shares and B shares. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
We talked about finding emerging markets. What does that right market look like? It's the stuff that has like stable businesses, big box stores, a small regional airport, looking for the big box retails, a community college or a little bit larger than a community college, right? 100 plus population. What we want is places where jobs are being created, where there's growth coming. And right now there's a lot of growth coming, honestly, across the Midwest and the South. There was a report I saw like a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, Sean, that people are pouring out of California and New York and all these places where they're getting taxed to high heaven. And they're moving into the Midwest and to the South. And so, like, they're coming more towards the center of the United States.
Yep.
Because it just makes financial sense. And not only are people, but companies are moving as well. So we find the right location, right? So we like to we track most of the major markets in the Midwest and the South. Then we say, okay, well, let's now look for the right property. What does that look like? We believe it's got to be at least 75 units or more. Well, why 75 units? Well, because, man, it costs to operate and have a really good management company in the door. And the easiest way to do that is to have a unit that can support it. That number is 75 for us, right? And so a lot of people are like, gosh, Corey, do I really want to go that big? I mean, I don't know if I want to buy something. I just want to buy like a 12 unit. I'm going to tell you, and this may not sound right, but it's going to sound weird. It is a lot easier to do a big deal than it is a small one. And Sean, I used to not think that was possible. But when you learn the power of leveraging OPM, other people's money, it is a lot easier. Banks will give you millions of dollars. But dude, I'm trying to get a refi on a property that I own for $150,000. And I've stopped doing it because they've required so many things from me. And I'm a multi-millionaire. And for them to like, okay, can I have another return, or what's this income? I'm like, oh my God, why is this so hard? Yet a commercial bank will give me $10 million without much of a look. It's crazy. Jeez. It's easier to do bigger deals, right? So, but we just look for stuff that has we call them value add. So you asked about the different plays. So in the apartment business, there's what's called we call them the opportunities, we call them plays. So there's a momentum play. The momentum play is just where you buy the property for a pretty good deal. It's probably already 90% occupied, doing pretty well financially, And then we look for things operationally that we can maybe tweak and maybe make a little bit more money. But mainly it's just, hey, listen, continue the asset and just increase the rents, maybe by 3% each and every year. And you're like, well, Corey, can you make money doing that? Dude, yes, you can, because sellers will allow you to make money. It's crazy, but they will actually allow you to make money because they can't sell it if you're not. That's why it's commercial real estate. They expect you to make a profit. Imagine that. That's great, right?
Yep.
Then you got to find the right problem. So the right problems truly is an absentee landlord or a high expense ratio. Sean, so many times I see deals where we look at like the salaries and related. Salaries and related are the staff that's working at the property. And we will see overbloated labor. Like, how many people do they have working at this property? Because we think it needs to be about half. And based on our experience, a lot of times it's half. Mm-hmm. And we can immediately on day one, like think about a salary for an apartment person. That's like 40 grand. So if you can cut 40 grand right off the bat from on an apartment deal, let me just do the math real quick. If I get my phone to work. What did I say, 40,000, right?
Yep.
1,000 divided by, let's call it 7 cap. That's $571,000. You just increased the value of the property. Just by cutting, like you knew that when you were going to go buy the deal. Like that's saying, hey man, Sean, you're awesome. You just made $600,000 almost by letting that one person go. Right?
That's huge.
So, yeah, man, and that stuff happens all the time, you know. And you get these tired owners. Sometimes they're just, man, they're close to their twilight years, and they just don't care anymore. And they've owned it for a long time, and like you can buy good deals like that. And then a lot of times, what I like is a lot of times there's like groups, a lawyer group or a doctor group. They get in these little bickerments and fights, and they all, and then because they can't figure it out, we buy the property real cheap, and so that's awesome. But all those things, they really just equal a deal, Sean. So our process is simple. We have step one. So this is just a graphic. I'm going to go through, I think, each and every one. The first one, we call it the acquisition filter, right? And this is where we kiss a lot of frogs. We look at 90, so we analyze, in the markets that we cover, we try to broadly look at maybe 95% of the deals. Last year, Sean, I think we looked at 720 or something like that, full underwriting deals where we actually did the full financial assessment on those deals. Out of those, I think we did 27 site visits where we went to the property 27 times. Out of that, we made 6 offers. Out of that, 3 offers got accepted. Out of that, we closed on 2.
Jeez.
That's what we did last year. So now the 2 deals that we got are amazing. And I'm going to show you one. And I'm going to show you my cash flow on it too. Just so you can, and it's going to be pretty cool. But so that's the first step of our process is we have a due diligence acquisition filter where it's called doing the underwriting, right? And that really just means you have to put stuff in a calculator. You have to look and analyze the financials. So once it meets that process, we said, hey, we think this is a good deal. Let's put it under contract. We're still not done, Sean, because now we're going to do the due diligence, the audit. This is where we do a full inspection. And you were there with us when we did University Crossings. It's a full crew, man. They show up, they go buy tables, they call it the war room. And dude, they go through each and every financial jacket. They have all the trades, look at all the a physical inspection of the property. And dude, it's a whole team. And we go and we look at everything. And so the goal is, because we're raising millions of dollars in private money, you got to be able to look at your capital in the eye and say, listen, I have verified. I think Reagan said it, trust but verify.
Right.
And so that's exactly what we do, is we trust people. Yeah, the sellers are honest. I trust them. But we verify the crap out of it. And a lot of times we find out where they're maybe telling a little half lie. You know, well, I don't know where that laundry income was going, but it was kind of going in the owner's side pocket, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I mean, and they literally have, they break out and they go through every single lease, everything, every single deposit, the term of the lease, when it expires, how they pay. Are they an ACH? Are they a check? Are they cash? You know, how they pay. And then literally break down an entire, I mean, I think the reports, I've seen over 126-page report of every single due diligence detail known to man, and they're looking for the grenade. They're looking for the what if. So interestingly, we've been, Corey, you know, we're working on this $26 million 200 plus unit, and the grenade in that unit was that the taxes weren't underwritten recently for an increase, right? So we underwrote the property for like $256,000 in taxes, but they traded the LP way back in like 2003 for $13 million. Well, if we buy the property today for $26 million, then the property is going to reassess, and that $256,000 tax bill is going to go to $526,000. Well, if you do the math, $526,000, what does that do to the valuation on the property? Well, you got $526,000 minus 200 and was it 56? That's $270,000 divided by 5 cap. That's a $5.4 million premium that would have cut the cost of the property, you know, down, you know, on one single line item. And that's even before we got into due diligence and really digging into the numbers. So that was a grenade that was avoided because of your management team, because of the diligence and what to look for, and to underwrite it for the absolute worst case scenario. So maybe it wouldn't assess at the full, you know, $26 million, but what if it did?
Yeah, but and the what if it did, and we had $8 million of monies raised, how would you look your capital in the eye, right? And so, and that's one of the things, when you do underwriting, and my management company, they are the best at it. And there's, because, like, Sean, I would say me and you are, I'm an optimist.
Yeah, me too.
I'm always the glass is half full. I'm going to make deals work. I use the power of my mind. I'm like, I'm going to will it. I'm going to make it. And so what my management company does is just the opposite. They sit back. I think of David Atkins. He's the owner of my management company. He cracks his, you know, folds his legs and cranks his neck, and he's like, yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. And he's really the pessimist. And he's like, well, what's the risk in it? And he's always looking for the downside. And it's really a great thing to have. It's a good partnership, because we go out and try to help find and smoke out deals. And they're the ones that just say, Corey, yeah, but this is not a deal because of this, right? Here's what you didn't know. Here's the operational things that you may not have the insight on exactly. And so together we work as a well-oiled machine, right?
Right.
So that is a fun process. So then we have our management advantage. And this truly is my unique zone. And we have a team approach. I've never seen a management company that does it the way we do it, in that most management companies, you have an acquisitions, or not acquisition, a property manager, right? And they'll only talk to an asset manager for the management company. So it's a one-to-one communication. That's not how it works in our system. We have multiple people. We have a home office, a home base. There's people that are in charge of leasing. There's people that are in charge of marketing. There's people that are in charge of what's called make-readies. and it's a whole choreographed thing. And there's multiple people talking to multiple people at our property. And honestly, what it does is it's a well-oiled. I mean, Sean, you've seen kind of like the way that works. They're crazy. They're insane.
Well, it's weird because we had dinner at Johnny V's here in Scottsdale, and I'm sitting across the table and talking to David, and he breaks out his phone and shows his KPIs, or key performance indicators, of all the over 3,500 units that they manage. And he has a coloring code system where it's like a red, green, blue. And green means it's operationally sound. Blue means it's kind of, or maybe it's yellow, it's like a cautionary. And red means it's all hands on deck. Everybody and their brother dives into that particular property. And I think a red is less than, I think it was more than 5% occupancy or something like that. So if the occupancy goes up to 5% occupancy, it's a freaking hands down. Oh, you know, holy cow! Oh my, it's like a red. We have issues, but what they do is, you know, it's so apparent to everybody's KPI that here's what the expectation is, here's how we're all indicated, here's how and then now what we got to do to dive in to get it to a green and to keep it out of the yellow and the red. But he is completely on the pulse of every single unit happening, which is amazing. And I was thoroughly impressed.
The report goes every morning to every manager.
Yeah, and then the report goes to every manager. Every manager knows how their property sits. And then if it's a red, they take a senior manager that is their top rock star, they fly him into that particular property, and they live there until it's back to a green. It's like, who does that? You know what I mean? It's insane.
So every property has a blow-up mattress and a set of sheets. And that manager will live in the office if he has to. If he has to, that's where he's living. Or he'll go find an empty unit or something. But and they think that's totally acceptable. That is how they do it. That is their MO, and it's insane. I've never seen a company do it better. And that is our strategic advantage in what we do, is because operations is where you make money in this business.
Yep.
You make it on the buy, yes, but you keep it and you make lots more of it if you're a really good operator. And that's really the essence of what we do. And then here's the last thing. So when we go to sell it, this is how I sold the part that I'm going to show you here in a minute, is we sold this property for an extreme amount of money. So remember the 5 years. Why is it 5 years? 1 year to fix the broken stuff, another year to fix the broken tenants, 3 years to maximize operations. The reason for that is our financials are so perfect. We have a Wall Street grade financial reporting at the end of every month that we give to our investors. And we will use that same report to give to a seller. And so we actually go in stock and find broken 1031 exchanges, small family offices. Why? Because a broken 1031 exchange, they will overpay for something because they don't want to pay taxes. And what they really want is a nice, consistent, rising income. And that's what we have when we have 3 years of steady growth, man. And it points out a very steady picture. And like you said, and the word you meant to say was vacancy, not occupancy. At a 5% vacancy, that meaning 95% occupancy, management company is saying code red, code red.
Yep.
That's insane. Most management companies would think, oh, that's great. We're doing fine. No, we believe in 100% occupancy. And because we believe it and preach it, a lot of times it happens.
That's awesome.
So it's really as you acquire, you manage, we add value by maintain growth. It's not a hard process. So our investor comes first, right? So here's some of the things that we do to protect the investors. So when we do loans, we don't look for these short-term loans. You said it earlier, Sean. That's how everybody got screwed in 2007, 8, 9, right?
Yeah.
Is They had short-term loans, like doing the 3-year loans, 5-year loans, and their note came due, and there was no money to go get a new loan, and cap rates had changed, the values had changed, even though they were cash flowing. And so what we do is we typically go to a 10-year loan with like some type of adjustable afterwards. Why? Because that protects our capital, because we can outlive a downturn as long as we're making cash flow.
Yep.
And we know that. But we also try to have the short-term ability in those loans to be able to sell within 4 to 5 years and not have a high, what's called the defeasance fee, or percentage to sell, right? And so typically after the 5th year, we can sell, and for only 1 point cost. And so that's a really good thing. That's what we try to do.
Yeah, most big loans like that have built-in long-term prepayment penalties on them. So you're paying 3 to 5 points just to get out of the loan. But if you're talking about a $5 to $7, $10 million loan on it, 5 points, you're talking, it's $500,000 just to get out of the deal.
Yep.
You know, so.
Yeah, exactly. And so the other thing we will protect our investors, we only select the solid deals, right? We have the best-in-class property management, and that combination allows us to really make sure that we protect the downside to the investor, and really to try to allow us to maximize the upside, right? You know, for a management process, dude, a couple things that we do on all properties. First, you got to assess all your current tenants. We look for, like when we take over a property, we're looking for life safety. Where are all the, you know, a lot of times you have concrete that's uneven. And if someone stubs their toe and falls and hits their head, that's a life safety issue. We got to fix those things immediately. We then take care of deferred maintenance. We install a lighting program. I don't talk about this enough, but here's what we do. This is the easiest bang for the buck, and for anybody listening, if you're buying anything for rentals, this is exactly what you do. Take every incandescent, old, yellow, dirty light, those 60-watt bulbs, get them out of the whole, don't let anyone exist in your property. Replace it with an LED, daytime, blue light, the real bright lights, right? And all the women will thank you, because those things we light our properties up like a Christmas tree. and it's the most, because remember, in the B and C class properties, that's a working man's property, right? A working woman's property. They're coming home at night, and if it is bright and feels safe and they can see what's going on, dude, that means so much to women. They will stay there just for that. But what it does as a new owner, it says there's a new sheriff in town, right? Yep. It really sets the stage of something's happening, and it's way different. So that lighting program is huge. We love free marketing. We love the internet. We love all the things that the internet does. We're really good at it. We train our staff to do it our way. So in AFI's, our management company's repertoire, they have at any given time 4 to 5 managers that are in training. They almost have to go through a full year of training before they're certified. So when we take over a property, we are not hoping that the manager on site will do a better job. We're normally letting that guy go. We're always letting that guy go, okay? And we're replacing it with our trained staff. And dude, that's huge. No one does it that way. I went through so many management companies, John, that they're like, oh, well, we can train that person up. No, you can't. You can't. They can't learn it fast enough, and you will stall the operations of your property.
Yep.
And then, like you said, maintains 95 to 97% occupancy. We always upgrade our tenant base. We're always increasing our standards to get in our units, and we continuously maintain it. We have a higher expense ratio than most management companies out there. Why? Because we fix our stuff. We keep our property at a primo. We keep it that very nice, good state of condition, because that's what you have to as operator. If you do that, your asset lasts a long, long time.
And
right?
no one wants to be part of something and be a slumlord. You know what I mean? That's just sucking cash. And I met this a local guy here that owns a lot of apartment complex, and I visited several, but the tenants don't like them. They don't care to the place. There's cracks all over the the sidewalk and stuff like that. The places are a mess. Total slumlord. I mean, the places need $1 million just in renovation, just to get it up to current standards so he can rent it. So now he's not screening tenants. He's letting anybody come in that shows their driver's license. And it's just a bad operational business plan instead of creating high standards.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bad way to lose, man. So, and they'll lose fast once it starts going down. So then we finally sell the property. So when we sell the property, normally when it goes is all the proceeds go into our operating account. We then return all the principal of our investors. So they get their money first, right? Then we give them any additional interest because we've already been paying them cash flow, right, as the property's cash flow. So they're going to give them the next chunk of money. And then if we refi, they can stay in it with us if we do a 1031 exchange. But really, then it's just like wash, rinse, repeat. We are going to buy another property. Almost every time we sell one, we will pretty much have an idea of where we're going to go to our next deal. And most of our investors, they just come right along with us because they get used to the process and it's good for them, right? They make good money doing it.
Right.
So let me show you a real deal. This is a real, so let's talk about Lionsgate Apartments. So this is, here's what I did. My first deal I bought in 2011, I bought Lionsgate Apartments. Here's the pictures of it. Just an average, ordinary property. But when I bought it, it was 78% occupied. It had a drug problem. In fact, we had Malden police bring their drug dogs to the property. We put things on the night before on the doors, and we had 2 move-outs in the middle of the night.
I bet.
Solved our drug problem.
Yeah.
Right? We re-roofed the property. So you can, the picture on the left, the picture on the right, we re-roofed the property, restriped it, did all the interior stuff, spent about $700,000, $800,000 in CapEx on the property.
Wow.
Raised $1.4 million to do the deal. I sold that property last August. Right? I bought it for 3.2. I sold it for $8.8 million.
Wow.
Now, for anybody that's counting, that's $4.7 million in profit. Okay, it's actually 4.8 if I really look really hard on the deal. There's my HUD, just so you know that I'm not BSing anybody here. Okay, that's my HUD.
Wow.
Now that's a pretty good day in the life. Okay.
So quick question. So how did you find the deal? So where did the deal come from?
I actually found this deal because I was raising lots of money. I went to an event, and it wasn't even my money, right? So I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had enough to maybe make something work, but I leveraged all the people that I knew, and at that point in time I was doing fix and flip, so I knew people were accustomed to giving me money. I went to a multifamily event. And at the back of the room, they asked, like, hey, does anybody got any announcements? I stood up in the back of the room. And I said, listen, my name's Corey Peterson, and I got a crap ton of money. Is there any deals out there? I'm gonna move real quick. I'm outside in the middle of Missouri. There's a storm coming. Hold on. All right. So I bought that property I said that, hey, does anybody got any deals? Man, I call this the Corleone method because, Sean, I didn't have to buy dinner or lunch for the rest of the week. Everybody was like, hey, look at my deal, look at my deal, look at my deal.
So everyone brought you deals.
I found 2 guys that needed my money really, really. Go ahead.
No, I said that. No, that's good. So you basically started telling people, and people started lining up deals for you.
exactly. And so then I ended up, 5 guys that really needed my money, and I ended up negotiating a 75% ownership of that deal. And then I ended up buying both of those partners out shortly after, and controlled it for the next 6 years. And we made basic improvements each and every year. We just kept on doing the process, and when we felt like the timing was right and our market sense was tingling, we're like, hey, let's see if we can sell this thing for a stupid amount of money.
Yeah.
And just so happens we did. And so, here's cheers, everybody.
So the two components were. So the two components were that number one is you started putting the word out that you are buying properties, and whether you had money or not have money, that's irrelevant. That you just started putting the word out that, hey, you're looking for larger 75-unit apartment complexes, number one. And people started, bringing you deals or talking to you about deals and stuff like that. Which, interestingly, that's, what I've recently done, start putting the word out there. And we've been looking at a bunch of deals, that are coming through. So the second component is the capital raising component. How hard was it to raise the 1.4 million for that particular property, and where did the bulk of the money come from?
So I had the bulk of it, so it wasn't that hard. It was a little nervous. I was a little nervous. It was my first one. It's a lot of money. But what I did was I had a bunch of people give me $100,000, right? I really did. I had a couple $100,000 there, $100,000 from this guy, and I just went and networked with everybody that I knew, and they're like, "No, Corey, we like the deal. It looks like a good solid deal. We trust you." A lot of these guys were giving me money for my single family fix and flips, and so they're just like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine. We'll give you $100,000 for that deal." And so I had maybe initially I had I would say 15 people in that deal, right?
Yep.
So it's almost $100,000 a piece. And then later on, when I refied and we changed the structure, I had one guy bought, his name's Mr. Peters, but it came in with $1 million and bought most of the other people out. So now I only have 6 investors in this deal.
Gotcha.
So, so now I do want to say that $4.7 million, not all of it was mine, right? Now $2.5 million of it is, okay? The rest of it is my investors' capital. Right? It was coming into this. We did a 1031 exchange, and we all did a exchange together.
But that's pretty cool, though, because think about it. You brought these investors in. They got into a deal, and now they got depreciation, they got cash flow, and they got the 1031 into a bigger deal. This one right here, Eagle Village. And then now they're still getting depreciation. They're still getting cash flow. And they move the profits over into something where their probably checks are bigger now.
Their checks are way bigger. Exactly.
Yep.
Their checks are way bigger, about 30% bigger.
That's awesome.
Right? Like it's pretty cool. And not only that, is this property is a new building. It is a new cost seg study. It's a way more expensive building.
Yep.
We are having a lot less. It's awesome. So we win all the way around. So we've got to take all our profits, not have to pay any taxes to Uncle Sam.
Yep.
We bought this property, $12.7 million, and here's what it really does, okay? So I'm going to show you 2 numbers, but the first number is mine, and the second number is kind of my investors. But remember, half of this money, where it says yield to equity, right? So $4.2 million is what we really used for our investors, of investor money. The rest of it, we made kind of an acquisition fee and stuff like that. So out of that, where it says yield to equity, that's $336,000. That's what I pay my capital. Now, half of that goes to me, right?
Right.
Because it's half of my money. The rest of it goes to my investors, and my investors love it. But I want you to look at this bottom part where it says equity cash proceeds, right? Or even, the free cash flow. So just on this deal, if you take half of the 336 and then half of where it says free cash flow, that's 141. Just on this one deal alone, I'm making almost $300K in passive cash flow. I make on a couple. I have a couple other deals that I'm not showing here, but like $400K to $470,000 free cash flow. It depends on each and every month. Some months are different, right?
Yep.
That's a pretty good living if I check, man.
Yeah.
That's passive money.
Passive income coming in no matter what.
Now I want you everybody to look at this. Look at year 1. Look at year 2 where it says free cash flow. Look at year 3. And then look at year 4. In about 4 more years, look at the difference in my income.
So what is you're in year 1 right now, right?
Yeah.
So you're in year 1 at the 141,050. Year 2, your income without you having to buy another property, having to go do anything else, literally increases, almost 60 grand, right? And then year 3, it gets really exciting. Now from year 1 to year 3, it's about $150,000 annual increase, which is huge. You know what I mean? So, and then obviously you got 384. But I mean that's a lot of cash flow over a course of a 4-year period.
Dude, I mean it spits off money. This is a legacy property. So this is how I bought one deal. My first deal ever that I bought, Lionsgate Apartments, has set me free for the rest of my life. This is only one deal that I own. I own multiple apartment complexes, Sean.
Oh yeah, that's not including all the other apartment complexes. That means, the current ones we're in escrow on, and you are in escrow on, and taking down, and deals are working on. By by December, you'll have another 500 to 600 units under your belt. It'll produce another, maybe $100,000 a year cash flow.
Yeah, just like that. The power of multifamily apartments is something that I've come to just like when you think about the power of it. It is a way to accelerate. Now, I've made a good living, and I know you have too, Sean, doing wholesale. I've made a great living. I've made a really good amount of money, but I've never become wealthy. I mean, when I talk about wealth, until I started getting into apartments, because that was that passive income, passive money, and that's where true wealth is built. And it was just a game changer for me. And and it could be a game changer for your people too. So that's kind of how we do it. It's our business in a nutshell. Sean, you've been on board with me. We're going to do some deals. We're doing a deal together, honestly, right now.
Yeah.
And I'll let you take it from here because we are working a deal, and we would love to share it with the right people, but there's some things they got to do.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about this particular deal, you can go to passive2freedom.com. You can go there and you'll see a quick video, and then just if you fill out the information below, what it will do is it'll take you to another page where you can learn more about the current offering, and I'll tell you more about it, what we do. But essentially, it's an amazing 64 unit directly across from Columbus State University. That is it's an operational momentum play, just like you're talking about. There's about 4 small tweaks that make about $150,000 difference in an operation play just in the first year, which is amazing. That's excluding the lights or excluding the rents and stuff. So it's and then on the expense side, there's a couple tweaks that make a large play there. So it's a great property, and we're looking for investors that want to be a part of that. So you can learn more about it by going to passive2freedom.com, passive2freedom.com. If you go there, see a quick video of me, put your information in below. It'll take you to a page. You can download the current offering document. You can actually watch a video that Corey and I made about the property and the play. So you can actually see a real life property, how it was underwritten, what the play is on it. It's a very interesting video for you to be able to watch. And if you'd like to participate, whether it be in and be a partnership in the deal with us, and you have those Class A shares where you can use the depreciation. If you want to use IRA money, you want to use investment funds, or you're wholesaling excess cash, you want to turn that into passive cash flow. That's the best way to do it. On that page, you'll be able to fill out some more information. And then what we got to do is obviously see if it's a right fit. And then you'll be brought to a calendar where myself and Corey will get on the line with you and determine if it's a right fit for you. If it's not a right fit, then obviously, obviously it won't work. But we're only looking for a handful of people. I already have pretty much close to half the money raised for the operation right now. So we're looking for a handful more people that are interested in participating.
Yeah, it'll go fast, Sean.
Yeah, it'll go fast. I'm excited about it. And like I said, you don't need everybody, but obviously if they have their money in an IRA and it's just sitting there earning 2%, do something different with it. And if you want to get out of wholesale, the best way to learn about this and be a part of it is actually be in a deal. And once you're in a deal, you kind of see what's going on, behind the scenes and how it works, and see those monthly reports.
Sean. Hey, and Sean, I want you to remember too. We went in detail, like that's just to watch that presentation of how we went in detail on that deal.
Yeah.
That in itself is like a lesson, man. Like
it is.
So whatever you've got to do to go fill out the information that you got to do it, because that in itself, we spent a lot of time dissecting the whole deal. And that's going to be really, you're going to want to pay attention to that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you see the play on the property on a very conservative basis, right? It was literally, the exit was underwritten at 7.5 cap, yep. Which is a very conservative cap rate, for that particular area. So go to Passive to Freedom. Not Flip to Freedom, but passive, Passive, to freedom.com. You can go there. You can learn more about what we got going on. We'd love you to participate. Love to speak to you, see if you qualify. And obviously, if not this deal, we have other deals we got coming down the line. I think we got another one, OKC, we got working on that's going to be coming up soon. So that'll be great. So Corey, listen, you did a great job. I greatly appreciate it. I'm so excited about what you have done, in the past, handful of years. Flipped from a wholesaler to an apartment syndicator, and I know a lot of people on the line are looking at it to where they can turn their wholesaling business, maybe not all the way into apartment syndicating, but they can turn the wholesaling business as a way to build a legacy instead of having to start from scratch every single month with zeros, and then build another $100,000, $150,000 a month in revenue, $20,000 or $30,000, whatever the case may be. So I appreciate it,
brother. Yeah, man. Hey, this has been it's so fun, dude. Listen, all I can tell you is the cash flow life of making passive income, massive passive, man. It is the most unique feeling you'll ever get when you know that tomorrow you can wake up and the money's going to show up no matter what. That is a very cool experience.
Yeah, it's very, very cool.
You guys can do it.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is going to take a second reel here and go into the attendees right here and see if anybody has any questions. Let me see, where did the questions go on here? Question. I think I separated the questions, didn't I? Oh yeah, I did right here. Here we go. Any questions on? Will there be a replay of the presentation? Yes. Great webinar, guys. Good to run. That's awesome. Thanks for a great presentation. Good job. Very inspirational. Can you refi the money as a loan and get the investors out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. So a lot of times we'll do it. It all depends on the deal, but we have the if there's bank money out there, that's the normal play that we'll look at is let's refi the property. We'll give our investors money back to them. They'll give it back to us in our new deal, and everybody wins. So and then we have another asset that we own, and that you will own. So when you start learning how to do this, you get to keep the asset, and your investors go to your next deal. That's what they do.
Yeah, so someone's asking, do we get a tax report and a cost segregation for the accounts? Actually, these guys are amazing. They actually, not only do they give you monthly reporting of all the bank statements, exactly where the property stands, not only just to the partners and investors, but all the investors get, these monthly reports. So you get all the bank statements where every dollar goes. You get the studies and all that information, and cost segregation stuff for your accountants and stuff like that, and what that depreciation does for your shares.
Yep, and we issue a K1 to every investor, so that is the correct documents that you'll get. And remember, we do operate from a private placement memorandum. It is very much a very legal document, and so it already dictates how the depreciation is going to be handled, who gets what percentages. So it is very much just a standard procedure, so you don't have to worry about, oh gosh, are they giving us the correct amount of depreciation? We're mandated to, so that's really cool.
Right. So someone's asking if you have a deal where to submit it. Just submit it at Sean@flip2freedom.com. Sean@flip2freedom.com. If you have investment partners that you think might be interested in something like this, and you know people with capital that go, hey, I know someone with capital, they have a big chunk of money, they would love something like this, then definitely send me an email at Sean@flip2freedom.com, and I'll reach out to you and see what we can do on something like that. So someone's asking split of ownership. It's just it's based on a deal-by-deal criteria, deal-by-deal basis. So I think that's it for the questions. So go to let me, now I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna make me the presenter, show my screen. If I go over here and I show my screen, can you guys see my screen okay there? Yeah, so if you see my screen, if you go to passive2freedom.com right here, quick video, all you do is fill out your name, phone number, email address, if you're accredited or non-accredited. Once you go there, it'll take you to another page. I'll show you what it looks like. And then, so submit right there. Basically take you here to this page, and this is the University Crossing. This is what it looks like. Brand new 128 bed student housing. It's directly across from Columbus State University. It's a Division II college school. It's a great property. You can download the marketing package here. Just fill out the information. What this will do is it'll take you to my calendar. You can set up an appointment, see if you have interest, see if we want to work with you, you want to work with us, answer any questions, and decide if you want to move forward or not on there. So that's basically the steps involved. But I think it's it's an exciting opportunity. I think we're going to crush it with that, and plenty of more of opportunities we got. Maybe it's not this one. We have other ones that are coming online. So Corey, you've been great. I know you got to get back to your company there in Kansas. I really appreciate your time and energy. Thank you guys for attending. I greatly appreciate it. Go to passive2freedom.com, get started over there. Let's learn more about each other and figure out if it's the right fit to make some money.
Rock and roll, brother. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, see you guys. Thank you.